Let me begin by greeting you in the National Action Network Sacramento chapter and the Still Building Conference of 2025. I was so excited about hearing about it. I really wanted to be there, but my schedule could not permit me being there. But first of all, the leadership, the creativity, the commitment, and the tireless work ethic of Reverend Dr. Decoy Porter, uh, who, by the way, won our national Wyatt T. Walker uh, 2025 award as an honoree. We give an award in the name of Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, who was the first chairman of the board of National Action Network and who was the executive director to Martin Luther King in his height. When we do things every August 28th, Wyatt T. Walker was the one organizing that with Bide Rustin for Dr. King. In his name, we honored Decoy Porter because he's that kind, has that kind of moxie and that kind of spirit. Let me also acknowledge all of the special guests and panelists and speakers, community leaders that are joining in this conference. One thing we do in NAN is we want to work with everybody that wants to find common ground to empower people, save our democracy, and have fairness and justice. But let me also, before I go into the whole thing of still building, give special shout out to the New Wave leadership, graduates, those that are coming along. We won't be here forever. And we should not expect that young people are going to, on their own, learn what we've learned. And then they ought not be arrested and incarcerated by our thoughts. They ought to be able to be creative, get out of us what we can give them, and then be creative and build their own strategies and their own ways. And that's what the New Wave Leadership graduates are about. And they had the dedication and commitment and growth through the program. Now this year's theme, Still Building, it reflects on the ongoing commitment to social justice and fairness. We're still building. We're not everywhere we want to be. There was something I read when I was just starting in movement stuff, but I was 12 or 13. And somebody asked a civil rights activist at the time to assess where they were. I would say this is where we still are. He said, we ain't where we want to be. We ain't where we gonna be. We ain't where we ought to be. But thank God we ain't where we was. So as bleak as this area of history as dim and cloudy as it looks right now in the present politics, we're not at the back of the bus. We're not where we can't vote. We're not where we've got to stand in the gutter while others walked on the curb. And people kept fighting. People kept believing. People kept building. And we realized we need to keep still building. We're 5 years on this side of George Floyd and the powerful movement that came from when we stood up for George Floyd. National Action Network was at the forefront of that. I preached both of George Floyd's funerals. We had the biggest march during the pandemic, biggest march in Washington. But here we are 5 years later, and they're taking back DEI, something the private sector came up in the wake of George Floyd. They're taking that back. They're moving on legislation to try and mess with voting and all. So we're still building. But if you know anything about history, it's always one or two steps forward, then push back. Every time there's an action, there's a reaction. And the brilliance of what Reverend Porter and the chapters doing to say still building is we are not rattled or disturbed by the climate of the time. We expected pushback. What they don't expect is us to keep pushing forward. And that's what our getting together, and that's what still building is about. is that we're not going to wring our hands in despair. We're going to keep moving. We're still building because we're still believing. And the relentless efforts of the Sacramento chapter in its advocacy, in its work in youth leadership development, and developing a powerful platform to just strategize together and bond together. I also, before I finish, I want to say to the honorees, I want to acknowledge them because you're not honored just because you got a name. You've shown diligence, you've shown excellence, you've shown consistency. And we are made aware of everyone honored before it is decided and presented by a chapter, so we know that they are of the caliber that National Action Network stands behind the Sacramento chapter with. Let me encourage the attendees to be active, to participate in the sessions, go to all of the discussions throughout the conference. A call to continue to build these connections is always the right thing to do. So let me thank again the National Action Network Sacramento chapter under the brilliant leadership of Decoy Porter and his family and his First Lady. And I'm so proud of that chapter. But let us keep going forward. Let us know that all of us need to be invested in still building. It personifies what NAN Sacramento is about, and it is something we need to be about, the whole nation. I'm sorry I'm not there with you in person, but I want to give you this message. Still building, that's what we're about. They may have knocked a few bricks off, but it doesn't matter. We're going to build this building of justice in these United States for everybody. God bless you.